the war with Granada had been expensive. With its end, spare funds again became unavailable, and it was these that made possible the long planned expedition by the Genoese Christopher Columbus, which was to end in the discovery of the Americas. Although Columbus had to defend his propositions to two separate commissions of inquiry, the first composed largely of churchmen and theologians, the second of philosophers, astronomers, and cosmographers, the reasons for the Catholic king's eventual authorization to him to proceed were not far to seek. The mopping up of the eastern Mediterranean by the Turks had effectively closed the traditional Mediterranean trade route to the east. Fortunately, it was now agreed that the world was round and that the Indies could consequently be reached by sailing in either direction. The most important question now to be settled was which of the two routes was the shorter. The Portuguese, having learnt their seamanship from the Genoese, and now inspired by their brilliant Prince Henry, the navigator, were already putting their money on the eastward route and feeling their way down the African coast. There was nothing new about the idea of circumnavigating Africa. If we are to believe Herodotus, the Phoenicians had in effect achieved it around 600 BC, and Genoa had made another attempt in 1291, sending the brothers Ugolino and Guido Vivaldi with two galleys to find their way to India by the ocean route. Venice had never bothered. Her compact with Mameluke Egypt and virtual control of the shipping lane through the Red Sea made it unnecessary. The Vivaldis had been unlucky. They had foundered off the Canaries, and the 14th century had come and gone with no further attempts. In the later 15th, however, by which time there had been significant progress in the arts of shipbuilding, seamanship, and navigation, it was a different story. The Cape of Storms, renamed by John II of Portugal the Cape of Good Hope, was rounded by the Portuguese Bartholomew Diaz in 1488. After that, it was only a matter of time before the route to India was assured. The age old rivalry between Spain and Portugal naturally inclined the Spaniards to favor the westward alternative, and when Columbus set about persuading Ferdinand and Isabella of its virtues, he was to a very large extent preaching to the converted. But the main purpose of his journey was, as always with the Spanish explorers, twofold: gold and the gospel. From the Indies, parts of which were believed to have been evangelized by St. Thomas, it was thought to be possible not only to open up a profitable trade in the fabled luxuries of the East, but with the help of the great Khan, a holy mythical figure who was believed to be friendly to Christians, if not a Christian himself, to spread Christianity throughout the unknown subcontinent. Here was a proposal that went straight to the Queen's heart. True, her own kingdom had been theoretically cleared of the taint of Islam, but in the eastern and central Mediterranean, the Ottoman advance showed no sign of slowing down. It had now reached as far as Italy, where bands of mounted Turkish irregulars had overrun the Friuli, laying waste the countryside, approaching so near to Venice that from the top of the campanile of St. Mark, the flames of the burning villages could be plainly seen. In 1480, the Sultan had launched a fleet of 100 sail against the port of Otranto in Calabria and invested it without difficulty. Naples was now threatened, and even Rome itself. Clearly, Christendom must take decisive action, but how? Pope Pius II had tried on two separate occasions to launch another crusade, but had met with little response. In any case, the Ottoman army consisted of highly trained professionals. In a direct confrontation, it would be effectively invincible. Here, perhaps, lay the answer to the problem: to approach the Turkish horde from the east, attacking it from the rear, where it would be weak and probably undefended. Isabella hesitated no longer. She was, she believed, financing not just the opening up of a new and important trade route, she was taking the first exploratory but essential step towards what might be the last crusade against the infidel. Ferdinand, too, was enthusiastic. Columbus later claimed to have brought a smile to the monarch's lips when he suggested that the profits from the great enterprise would pay for the conquest of Jerusalem. That smile may, of course, have been cynical, but Ferdinand could hardly have forgotten the old prophecy of the promised prince who would raise his banner over the holy city and rule the world. He and Isabella gave their formal approval on 17 April 1492, putting at Columbus's disposal the three tiny caravels, the largest of them little more than 100 feet long, that were to change that world beyond all recognition.